It all began with a chilling accusation. "That's your punishment for stealing my dad from me." Callie's words echoed in my head as she forcefully dragged me toward the basement. I struggled, but Callie, younger and stronger, easily overpowered me. My heart raced as she shoved me into the cold, dark space. The door slammed shut, leaving me alone in eerie silence. The basement was damp, with a musty odor and a bone-chilling cold that crept into my skin. Panic began to set in as the darkness closed around me. I was trapped, and my mind spun with questions. What had just happened? Why was Callie so furious? How had our relationship become so twisted? Before I could process the gravity of it all, I felt something pressing against my thigh. Instinctively, I reached into my pocket and found my phone still there. A small relief, but it didn't erase the fear settling in my chest. My name is Olivia Anderson, and I'm 45 years old. Never in my wildest nightmares had I imagined I'd find myself in such a terrifying situation. I work as an administrative assistant, nothing too demanding, but it keeps me busy and content. My life, though simple and predictable, was fulfilling. I had a stable career, surrounded by colleagues who felt more like friends. But, despite all of this, one thing weighed heavily on my heart: I wasn't married. For years, I watched as friends found their soulmates, settled down, and built lives together. Every wedding invitation brought with it a mix of happiness and envy. I feared growing old alone, with no one to share my life with. No matter how much I tried to push it aside, immersing myself in work or attending social gatherings, of fear gnawed at me. Then, one day, everything changed when I met James Anderson. James was 9 years older than me, charming, kind, and attentive. He worked for one of our client companies, and we crossed paths often due to work. At first, we were cautious, but gradually, we grew closer. What began as casual, professional interactions soon blossomed into something more meaningful. We started dating, and after a few years, we decided to get married. It felt like a dream come true, a chance to finally have the family I had always longed for. But this dream came with its own set of challenges. James had a daughter from his previous marriage, a 17-year-old named Callie. From the beginning, Callie was distant and guarded. She adored her father and stuck by him every chance she got. I hoped that, in time, Callie and I would grow closer, that we could form a bond and become a real family. But that was just wishful thinking. After the wedding, I moved into the house James shared with Callie. I left my job to focus on being a homemaker, devoting myself to making our home as warm and inviting as possible. I cooked balanced meals, kept the house immaculate, and did everything I could to his life for both James and Callie. But no matter how hard I tried, Callie kept her distance. At first, I chalked it up to her being a teenager, moody and rebellious, as they often are. But as weeks turned into months, her coldness never wavered. She brushed off my attempts to connect, offering curt, one-word responses or sometimes no reply at all. The more I tried, the more she seemed to retreat, like a shadow slipping further out of reach. The only time Callie seemed truly at peace was when she was with her cat, Oliver, who was a chubby, mischievous cat who had been with James long before I came into the picture. Oliver was Callie's constant companion, and I often found her sitting in silence, stroking his fur. I couldn't help but envy the bond she shared with the cat, while I struggled to even get her to look me in the eye. Time passed, and despite my best efforts, the distance between us only grew. 5 years slipped by, and though we lived under the same roof, Callie remained a stranger to me. I didn't know her favorite foods, her hobbies, or what she dreamed about. The only thing I knew for sure was her deep love for Oliver, and that was a connection I could never seem to share. I couldn't seem to replicate the connection Callie had with Oliver. Then one day, out of the blue, Callie spoke to me. I was startled. It was the first time she had ever initiated a conversation. "How long are you planning to stay in this house?" she asked, her tone sharp and cold. I was taken aback. "What do you mean? How long are you going to stay here? Can't you leave soon? You're in the way," she said bluntly. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had worked so hard to make this house a home, to be part of this family, and now Callie was telling me to leave. I stood there, speechless, stunned by her hostility. Callie continued, her voice dripping with bitterness. I love my dad. It was just the two of us before you came along. I can't stand you being here, pretending to be my mother. I wanted to say something, anything, to defend myself, but the words wouldn't come. All I could think was, how had it come to this? What had I done to make Callie hate me so much? Callie's next words cut even deeper. I thought if I ignored you long enough, you'd get the hint and leave, but you're still here, acting like everything's fine. You're not my mother, and you'll never be. So just, Bo. Tears welled up in my eyes. I had tried so hard to be kind, to be patient, but nothing I did seemed to matter. Callie's harsh words echoed in my mind long after she stormed off, leaving me alone in the kitchen. From that day forward, Callie's treatment of me grew even crueler. She criticized everything I did in cooking, my attempts to make conversation, and made it painfully clear that she wanted nothing to do with me. It was like living with a stranger who resented my very existence. The worst part was, in front of James, Callie put on a facade. She acted like the perfect daughter, hiding the venom she reserved just for me. Whenever James was around, Callie transformed. She acted sweet and polite, praising my cooking and pretending to be the perfect daughter. But the moment he was out of earshot, her coldness returned, sharper than ever. The insults came back in full force, and I felt trapped in a nightmare with no way out. I wanted to talk to James, to tell him what was really happening, but each time I tried, I lost my nerve. He was always so busy with work, and I didn't want to add to his stress by burdening him with my problems. So, I kept quiet, hoping that maybe, somehow, things would improve, but they never did. 6 years after we got married, Callie graduated from high school and found a job at a company nearby. Around the same time, James began taking more frequent business trips. At first, he would be gone for just a few days, but soon, his trips stretched into weeks at a time. With James away, Callie's behavior became unbearable. She criticized everything I did, from the way I cleaned the house to the meals I prepared. Every day, she found something new to complain about, and her words cut deeper and deeper. Then one day, I reached my breaking point. Callie had just insulted my cooking again, leaving her meal untouched before storming off to pet Oliver. I couldn't take it anymore. Just get out, I yelled, my voice shaking with anger. You're always telling me to leave, but maybe it's you who should go. You have a job, you have money we don't, you just move out and live on your own. Callie looked shocked, clearly unprepared for me to fight back. For a brief moment, she seemed at a loss for words, but then, her expression twisted in fury. What did you just say? She spat, her eyes narrowing. You can kick me out. This is my house too. Then stop treating me like a stranger. I shot back. I'm tired of being your punching bag. If you can stand me, maybe it's time you moved on. A tense silence followed, but before I could react, Callie lunged at me, grabbing my arm and squeezing it painfully. Ouch, I cried, trying to pull away, but her grip was too strong. She dragged me out of the kitchen and down the hall, completely ignoring my protests. Let go of me, I yelled, but Callie was unwavering. She dragged me towards the basement, her face set with grim determination. Before I could react, she shoved me inside and slammed the door shut. I was left in darkness, stunned and terrified. What was she going to do? How long would she leave me here? My heart raced as I pounded on the door, pleading for Callie to let me out, but there was no response. In the cold, dark basement, panic began to consume me. My head spun with fear and confusion. I couldn't believe this was happening. Callie had locked me up like a criminal, all because of her intense hatred. What had I done to deserve this? As the hours dragged on, my panic grew. I searched desperately for a way out, but the basement was solidly constructed, with no windows or escape routes. The walls seemed to close in on me, making me feel suffocated. Then I remembered the phone in my pocket. With trembling hands, I pulled it out and quickly dialed my friend Linda's number. Linda, it's Olivia, I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. I need your help. Linda arrived at my house within minutes. She pried open the basement door and helped me out, her face etched with concern. Are you okay? She asked, guiding me to her car. I nodded, though I couldn't stop shaking. Callie, She locked me in there, I said, my voice trembling. I don't know what she was thinking. Linda shook her head, her expression resolute. Let's get you out of here, she said, starting the car. You can stay with me until James gets back. As we drove away, a mixture of relief and dread filled me. I was safe for now, but what would happen when James found out? Would he believe me? Would Callie try to turn him against me? When we reached Linda's house, I sent James a message explaining what had happened. A few hours later, he called, his voice filled with concern. Olivia, are you okay? I'm coming home right now. James, you don't have to, I started. No, I want to, he insisted. I'll be there in a few hours. Just stay with Linda until I get there. True to his word, James arrived later that night. He looked exhausted, but his eyes were filled with worry. Olivia, I'm so sorry, he said, pulling me into a hug. I should have been there. I should have known something was wrong. It's not your fault, I said, trying to hold back tears. Callie's been hiding this from you. I didn't want to worry you, but I can't take it anymore, I said, my voice trembling. James nodded, his expression grim. We need to talk to Callie. This can't go on. The next day, we returned home, bracing ourselves for the confrontation with Callie. When she arrived, she looked taken aback to see James there. Dad, what are you doing here? She asked, her surprise evident. We need to talk, James said, his voice firm. What you did to Olivia was unacceptable. Callie's face twisted with defiance. She deserved it. She stole you from me. That's no excuse, James replied, his tone resolute. You put her life in danger. Do you understand how serious this is? Callie's defiance wavered, but she still tried to justify herself. I just wanted her to leave. I never meant to hurt her. But you did, I said quietly, stepping forward. Callie, I never wanted to replace your mother. I just wanted us to be a family. But you've made it clear that you don't want that. Tears filled Callie's eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. So what now? Are you going to kick me out? James sighed, running a hand through his hair. Callie, I love you, but you can't stay here if you're going to keep hurting Olivia. You need to get help. Maybe some time apart will help you see things more clearly. Callie stared at him, her expression a mix of anger and sadness. You're choosing her over me. I'm choosing what's best for everyone, James said gently. I want you to get better, to find a way to be happy, but that won't happen if you stay here and keep lashing out. After a long silence, Callie finally nodded. Fine, I'll go, but don't expect me to forgive either of you, Callie said, her voice cold. With that, she turned and walked out of the house, leaving us standing there in stunned silence. The tension that had plagued us for years seemed to dissolve, replaced by a heavy, lingering sadness. For the next few days, James and I were in a state of shock. We had hoped for a resolution, but instead, we were left with the fragments of a broken family. Callie moved into a small apartment nearby, and while James made an effort to stay in touch, the distance between us all was palpable. Life slowly returned to a new normal. James and I focused on rebuilding our relationship, finding solace in the quiet moments we shared. Oliver, sensing the change, became even more affectionate, curling up beside us as we Saturday on the sofa in the evenings. One day, as we watched the sunset together, James turned to me and said, "Thank you for staying strong, Olivia. I know this hasn't been easy." "It hasn't been easy for you either," I replied, squeezing his hand. "But we're in this together. We'll get through it." As weeks turned into months, we began to heal. Callie reached out occasionally, apologizing for her behavior and updating us on her life. She had started seeing a counselor, and though there was still a long road ahead, it was a step in the right direction. The house felt lighter without the constant tension. James and I rediscovered the joy of being together, taking long walks, planning weekend trips, and spending lazy afternoons talking and laughing. It felt like a second honeymoon, a chance to rebuild our lives and our love. Though the pain of the past lingered, we were determined to move forward. We had weathered the storm and emerged stronger on the other side. With each passing day, the future looked a little brighter.